Hi everyone, this is Jamie here. Welcome to another session of Vista Export Services. In this session, I'll be taking you through the process of using a plugin called Spline Cleaner. This amazing plugin helps users to quickly identify, edit and rectify complex spline problems in seconds. To find this plugin, simply Google Spline Cleaner and enter the Spline Dynamics website. I'll leave the link in the descriptions. In the website, you can find and download the plugin. Once downloaded, you can quickly install it by dragging and dropping it in the viewport, or by running the script and creating the button. Please check my previous Turbo Splines tutorial on how to install and create the button. Once everything is done, simply click on this button to open the dialog. This dialog warning is simply to check for updates of the script. Most of these functions are quite self-explanatory really. The first button is the information dialog. Let's click to open it for a quick check. The shape selected displays the number of shapes selected in the viewport, displays the number of splines in the viewport. Then we have the number of vertices, the spline length, the number of open splines, closed splines, the number of materials, single submaterials, possible errors, make diagnosis, exposed vertex sticks, vertex numbers and material ID. All this function will be later useful to examine certain problems with our drawings or simple text. The attach selection button allows users to select multiple separate splines in the viewport and attach them by clicking on this button. In the action by filter function, we have all these functions and options. By clicking these question mark toggles here, users can quickly see what each group does. To start, let's bring in a custom text spline provided by a client. Right-click and choose to rotate it. Enable the main toolbar by right-clicking on the main panel and choosing the main toolbar option. Enable the angle snap toggle. This allows rotations to snap to a specific angle. Open the Modify panel. Again, it's worth noting that the Spline Cleaner only works with shapes that have the editable spline collapse in the Modify panel. Click on the Spline's information dialog to open it. As previously mentioned, we have all this important information about the spline. The one section which you'll focus on is the open splines information. There are currently 205 open splines, which is a big problem if you were to extrude the text. Here we have 0 closed splines and the rest of the other information. Let's click on the Make Diagnosis button. The one section to concentrate on is the overlapping vertices. There are currently 220 of them. To close all vertices before extruding the spline, let's go to the Spline Cleaner dialog and scroll down to Weld the Vertices group. Let's skip the default threshold value to 0.1 and click to Weld Vertices. Close the Spline's information dialog and open it again. As you can see in the Spline information dialog, the number of open spline is now 0 and the number of closed splines is 12, which is amazing. It's all been fixed. Next, click on the Vertex Number button. Now that the vertices are closed, we can now see the individual number of each vertex in the viewport, which is extremely useful. Users can also see the vertex sticks in the viewport without the need to open the Modify panel. However, the spline needs to have editable spline applied to it first. Now we can extrude the spline without any problems. This is another example whereby the spline segments are clearly open by a lot. Users would obviously have difficulties extruding open splines such as this. To rectify this problem before extruding, we need to use this amazing function to connect vertices. Again, the Modify panel doesn't need to be open in order to do this, which is extremely useful. Click to connect vertices, followed by extruding the spline. As you can see, the extrusion was executed accurately. However, the holes in the text didn't come out correctly. To rectify this problem, simply go to Direction group and click to Fix Extrusion Axis. As you can see, the extrusion is now perfect. Here's another example of a typical text provided by a client, and we want to add more vertices to it. Before we begin, let's add the editable spline modifier first. In the Normalize Smart Mode group, let's click to normalize. The Max Script dialog should be prompted asking to collapse the entire modifier stack into editable spline. Click Yes and enable the Vertex button. As you can see, the entire text has now more vertices evenly spread across 1 mm. We can obviously change these values if desired. To reduce the number of vertices, users can simply click to reduce the number of vertices here. As you can see, the number of vertices were reduced automatically and smartly without affecting the original shape of the text, especially around the more curvy areas of the spline. To reduce the vertices even more without affecting the original shape around the curvy areas, let's start with a really small value in a section to preserve angles over. Type in the value of 15 to start with, and click to reduce the number of vertices. Click again to automatically reduce more vertices without deforming the original text. You can always press Ctrl+Z on your keyboard to undo actions. Users can also increase the number of iterations in order to have less vertices in a spline. This is another example for users in ArcViz industry, whereby you'd normally import a DWG file into 3ds Max and trace over the splines. Users trace over the splines because they're often overlapping and can't be extruded correctly. As an example, if you were to extrude these walls and turn the viewport to shaded, you'd quickly realize that the inside walls are not shaded. The spline edges have been extruded but not inside. This often happens when vertices are not welded. To quickly double check what's happening with the splines, simply open the Spline Cleaner dialog as previously done and click on Splines Information dialog button. As you can see, there are 147 open splines. There's also 0 closed splines and so on. The number of open splines is what we need to concentrate on. Because the problem seems to be the overlapping vertices, to correct it, we simply click to weld vertices. If there are gaps between the segments, then you would have had to click on a button to connect vertices instead. As mentioned earlier, to weld vertices, simply click on a button to weld vertices. As you can see, the current threshold value of 0.1 didn't work well. Let's click to undo and try a new value of 0.01 and click to weld vertices. Next, let's extrude the spline. As you can see, the walls are now extruded properly. This technique allowed us to save a considerable amount of time by avoiding to trace the entire drawing to create a new surface. Here's another drawing spline with missing segments. If you were to extrude as it currently is, we would have had similar problems as before. In this instance, we have a clear gap between splines. To correct the problem, delete the extrusion and click to connect vertices and extrude the spline again. The wall is now extruded properly. This is how I would normally avoid spending time retracing the drawing to create a new surface. In this final example, we have a massive number of separate splines we want to quickly attach, extrude and apply a texture to. To do so, let's start by opening the Spline Cleaner and its information dialog. As you can see, all splines are closed. To quickly attach them as one spline, press Ctrl+A on your keyboard to select them all, followed by clicking on the Attach Selected button. Click Yes to convert to editable spline as previously done. As you can see, all splines are now attached as one. Following that, simply apply the Extrude modifier and a texture to it. Here's the final result. This concludes our tutorial. For more information about the Spline Cleaner, simply check the link in the descriptions. I really hope you found this tutorial useful. Like and share it. And I hope to see you on the next one.